Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. We have a special guest. But you know what? A lot of things are happening. Forget about what they're talking about with Donald Trump and all that kind of stuff in Congress. That'll resolve itself. That is on autopilot. But what we have to work on is a whole lot more important. Today's show titled, Evette Avery Paid the Price for Standing Up for Workers. Insurance stocks cratering. Yeah, you know which ones? Health insurance stocks. And you know why? Because you know what, folks? We are going to get it done. Evette Avery did nothing wrong. She was just intent on taking care of both her families, her kids, first family, and workers at her side. It cost her her job. Second topic is going to be health insurance stocks are cratering. Yes, estoy contento. It's great. It's happening. You know why? They've been pilfering us for so long. It is time now to take back what is ours. Look, I was sitting in the virtual green room for the Tamara for Georgia show when I heard the tail end of Evette Avery's story. It was hard to take because I understood what was happening exactly. It was the intersection between the deceptively named right to work policy of Georgia and Delta's effectuation of corporate slavery. In a time where one cannot hold but the minds of the masses in chains, there is only one option for an independent thinker, the one demanding dignity, the one who acknowledges that their worth is not for sale to the lowest bidder. Evette Avery is a working mother providing for her family. She has been a Teamster Union Steward at UPS as well as an activist for workers' rights for several years. She is currently working on the most extensive and effective organizing campaign with the IAM to get union representation for Delta ramp and cargo workers. Delta recently terminated Evette after 7 years in a most undeserving manner, which she's going to explain to us. Look, in a subsequent blog post, we will explore the indoctrinating anti-union pathology occurring at Delta. Unfortunately, it takes a lot of work to help the non-union workers overcome the fear and induced feelings of lack of worth. That is the task of heroes like Evette Avery. That is the task heroes like Evette Avery must undertake. In our second segment, we will discuss the slide of the health insurance stock with Medicare for All gaining traction. Representative Pramila Jayapal's Democrat of Washington, her bill is causing panic because the pilfer of the health insurance companies is coming to an end. But we better remember, they will not go down without a fight. Just like how Delta and all these corporations will do whatever it takes to maximize their profits on the backs of people, so will the healthcare companies. Thieves want to continue stealing. It is just too damn easy to live that way. And folks, without further ado, I bring to you Evette Avery. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing just fine. Look, first of all, thank you so kindly for being on my show. I tell you, I was very impressed after I heard what first of all, what happened to you at Delta, but more impressive is what you're doing at Delta and elsewhere. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing fairly well. Doing fairly well. And
You're
yourself?
doing fairly well. I think the fairly well comes from the amount of work that you're doing, isn't it?
Correct.
Well, let me ask you this. First of all, tell us a little bit about yourself. I'm not talking about work. I'm just talking about who are you? Who is Evette?
That's a good question. Well, somebody who loves to enjoy life, travel, read, keep up on the what's going on with the current events, like to make sure the family's taken care of, and anything that comes in between, I guess.
Well, you decided also to, I love everyday activists, people that say, you know what, we're just not going to take it anymore. But I mean, it wasn't quite like that. I mean, you had a job at UPS, right? Actually, why don't I ask you to tell me, where did you start out working?
So I've been with UPS for almost 13 years, and that was something I included when I applied for Delta on my resume and application. So I was before terminated, I was at Delta for 7 years.
So
So it's
you
something
you
that was
you started out working at UPS, and after
correct.
you worked at UPS, you took on a second job at Delta.
Correct. Yes.
Now, how long were you at Delta?
7 years.
And being there at 7 years, you had how was your record? Did you have any problems with anybody or anything like that?
No call-ins, no lates for 7 years, no bad reports from customers or coworkers didn't have any issues.
Never late, always
Never.
there, whenever you
Yes.
were scheduled to be there. And
Correct.
I think you told me you weren't a full-time employee there, right?
No, it's called a ready reserve employee, so we're only allowed to work 1,400 hours a year maximum and 600 minimum.
Okay, why is that now? Or
Well, for those reasons, we're not offered health insurance. So limiting our hours keeps us from having to be offered any medical insurance.
Oh, so they watch exactly how many hours they're going to allow you to work so that they don't have to give you benefits. In other words, they want to maximize their profits on your back.
Correct.
Okay, so being there, what did you do? What did you start doing at Delta?
But when I was first hired, I was a ramp worker. So I worked the ramp and the bag rooms below wing, and eventually moved above wing to be a gate agent.
And after that?
And after that, I'm now out the door as a former employee.
But I mean, before that, I mean, where I'm trying to get is how did this union thing get involved? You get involved in this union thing at Delta.
Well, I already was a union member with UPS as a Teamster and was already a union steward before I was hired at Delta. Once I got on, one of my other coworkers that worked at UPS as well and Delta pointed me to the direction of the union drive that was going on at Delta. So I was introduced basically as soon as I started working.
So as soon as you got introduced into that, now first of all, exactly what is a union steward? A lot of people that are listening probably don't know what that is.
So we basically are we say the liaison between the workers and management. So we enforce the contract that's with the company.
Now, but you didn't have a union at Delta.
No. So it was
Okay.
definitely different.
So you started to do what?
So initially at Delta, we were doing the card drive. So we are getting our union card signed. The A cards is what they're referred to. So just going to different workers, letting them know that we were trying to form a union and kind of get their perspective on what was going on and getting union cards signed.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, that doing that is in as much as you are in a right. I tell you what, let's back up this. Georgia is not a union state. So explain to us what that really means, right to work, having unions in a right to work state. Exactly what does that mean?
Right. So a right to work state is basically a right to hire and right to fire. So you can come to work with the wrong shirt on today and you could go out the door and it'll be just fine in this state without a union contract. But having a contract, there are steps that you would have to go through in order to fire or an employee. So you have that contract in order to protect your job. So without that, in a right to work state is really a sad situation.
Now, so wait, what is the real purpose then of a union in a right to work state? Do they have any? Do they have any power at all? Is a contract something that they can work on?
Oh yeah, the contract is extremely powerful. The people in the union make the decisions. So the members of the union get to vote on the contract, what goes into the contract, and have the ability to file grievances when things are not going along with what the contract states. So we can file against the management on violating the contract, and that's something that's very valuable in a right to work state.
Oh, I see. So that is the reason why they're so strict, especially so here, not to get these unions involved in these right to work states. I got, I believe it or not, I had it all wrong. I really thought that really their power was limited, but you're telling me that the power, actually the power could be greater for unions in a right to work state.
All right, that's why they try to keep the legislation to try to their best to attack the unions in any way they can to try to weaken the power because they know how powerful a contract is.
Wow. Okay. So you were working, giving out pamphlets and all of those things at Delta, correct?
Correct.
Now, and is in doing so, I think there were some counter actions as well from Delta, correct? And what were those exactly?
Yeah, so my most recent incident was in the break room when I was passing out flyers and I had them laying out on the table while we were sitting there, myself and other coworkers, and one of their red coats picked up a flyer and threw it in the trash. So I asked him, should I be throwing Delta's flyers in the trash because we are subjected to a stand full of anti-union flyers as well as anti-union videos being played in the break room all day. So we are being bombarded with the anti-union, but they didn't want us to have information out about the union,
So
which
you're
is a
saying,
federal right.
so now by federal law, they can't stop you from doing that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And Delta, at the same time, in the break room, was on an indoctrination campaign, trying to scare workers not to, associate themselves with you or any image of a union, right?
That is correct.
Now, is that legal? What they're doing as far as trying to present all these videos and counteract you with all your flyers, etc.
No, that activity is actually considered interference. You know, you're not supposed to interfere. You're supposed to give the employees the right to get the information and give the right to choose. They have that right to have that information. So for them, to bring in the table all this anti-union rhetoric, but not want us to bring in what actually the union can do for you is a problem. It's definitely interference.
Now, could they have been reported for that?
Yes, and that's why we have interference forms to report them for that.
Were
Yes.
they reported for that?
Yes. We have several reports at this point
But was
all over.
anything done for about it, or
They're in the process now because they do have to file with the NLB for that. So once they take care of that issue, the union is on that at this very moment, taking
okay?
care of that issue.
Now, so you've been a union activist. You're really trying to motivate your people at Delta to join a union and do what's right. Start taking over. What happened?
So basically, while I was trying to do that, like I said, in that break room, we had the issue with them throwing away, and even some people who are not union supporters stood up and said, "Hey, she has a right to do that," and they was like, "She has a right. You shouldn't throw away her stuff." So we have people even in this right to work state who are not very familiar with unions, but they still, and a little scared of them because they're not, sure what they really can do, but still recognize that it is a fair, thing to allow us to come in to, have our say to see what a union could do for them.
Now, so something occurred that made them want to get you out of there, and they couldn't quite fire you for doing union activities, so they had to somehow, and not only that, you had a stellar record, never missed a day, never got written up for anything, don't have any customer complaints against you at all. They had to find some way to get rid of you. How did they do that?
All right, so they came with back in September saying that I had 2 weeks to choose between my jobs because they're a conflict of interest. And so that's after 7 years of working them both. And then we have several people that work the same jobs that I do, work for the same companies that I do, that have not been approached at all. So we knew that it was definitely a targeting issue for me because wearing a union pin, visibly and being active now brought that attention, to me. Now all of a sudden your job is a conflict when it hadn't been for 7 years.
What is the conflict that, as they told you?
Well, they state the conflict is that I can bid from above wing to go back to the ramp or to cargo. And I'm not sure at the time that he realized I was hired originally on the ramp. So if it was a conflict, I should have never been hired to begin with.
Wait, wait, you lost me there. What exactly is the conflict?
Just that I can bid from where I was at the gates back to cargo or go well, back to the ramp or the cargo. Just saying I can move. And that to me was not a conflict because, UPS moves packages, Delta moves people. So it's
Right.
not a conflict.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I'm still trying to figure out how could they even assume that that is a conflict or now. So they let you go. They fired you.
Right. At first I was suspended and then about 4 weeks later terminated.
Okay, and when did you get paid while suspended?
No,
Really? So they
really.
suspended you for 4 weeks, and then they went ahead and they fired you.
Correct.
And what is your recourse?
So they have a process where after you're terminated, you can appeal. So we currently in the appeals process, and I'm just waiting for the letter to come in the mail to let me know whether they decided to keep me terminated or to bring me back with some uh, different rules to go along with it. But it was a phone interview just to basically get my side of the story, and then they're doing the review now.
What's your anticipation?
I feel like it's the same people who did the first, had the first issue as far as the termination or the suspension, who's going to basically be dealing with the termination. I don't feel like it's going to be any different outcome than it already is because it's basically the same people involved with the decision making.
Are you going to then sue them now?
That would be the next recourse. Yes,
Uh, and what do you have examples in your state in Georgia? I think you're in Georgia, right?
correct.
Examples in your state where this has been successful?
Not necessarily in my state, but there have been successful cases of lawsuits against Delta for various reasons because of the Railway Labor Act that we're covered under. You have to sue them when it comes to labor issues versus going to the labor board. So there has been some successful people that have been terminated for different reasons and brought back.
Now, do you think that they underestimated the amount that how much you are going to fight this and how much you're going to put this out there? Because like, again,
Definitely,
this.
because I was told during the process that this was something new for them
Hmm.
because they never had someone who wouldn't choose. But for me, it wasn't my choice. I was hired, so now this is the issue Delta has, so they have to make the decision because I didn't hire myself. I would have never put myself in this situation to work the job for this long and then all of a sudden totally change my life.
So in other words, they wanted you to say, okay, you either stay with Delta, but you have to leave UPS where you're working full time, or you just.
Part time as well, but I have
Oh,
benefits there.
but you have
Correct.
benefits at UPS, or
Correct.
and they're not willing to offer any benefits, but you want the hours. I mean, and again, it is ironic because here it is a woman that's going out there and working. Everybody talks about work, work, work. You're not
Mhm.
asking anybody for anything. You're just working.
Right.
You're asking
Exactly.
for nothing. You're working two jobs, and even that they want to control exactly your options. What I call corporate slavery. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on here is sort of to use this as an example, because what happens, Yvette, is the narrative out there is that one, people don't want to work,
Mhm.
or two, that somehow there's this benevolency of the private sector, these corporations. The reason why we want to give them all these great benefits is because you watch the Delta commercials or you watch all all these other commercials, and oh, they're such benevolent people, when on the inside the employees are. I don't want to be insulting and say slavery, but reality speaking, it is corporate
Right.
slavery where you don't have control. And one of the things about it is they cannot exist without you. They cannot exist if you. And that's where the union is so important. Why I want to do this and I want to get your voice out there, because people have to realize that collectively is how you beat the slave master, the corporation.
Correct.
So I have a couple of other questions that I want to ask you. Now, you've been trying to unionize that place. What is the psychology of the people that you're dealing with? Both, the psychology of the people that you're dealing with. Because I know I'm in Texas, and in Texas, you ask the average Texan out there, and you mentioned the word union. They have so maligned the unions out here that people hear the word union. Oh, those are thieves. They're this. They're that. Is the psychology of the folks that you were working with there in Georgia, specifically in at Delta?
Well, definitely, we have some of those same sentiments here where people are just so anti union because of all the rhetoric that has been put out there against the union. And sometimes you just have to simply ask them, have you ever worked for a union or have you had experience with a union? Well, no. And then I just let them know what the union can do for them because there's a lot of fear as well of the unknown and fear of, maybe some story they heard. But you have to let them know nothing is perfect. Just like the company isn't perfect, the union isn't
Evette,
perfect.
I'm going to ask you to do something here because what I want you to do is I want you to make a PSA for me right now.
Okay.
Okay? And this is a PSA I'd like you to make for me right now. Evette Avery, union activist. Why should every American citizen that works for a corporation be unionized? Why should they be in a union?
Basically, to take care of their families. This is something that will help you when it comes to your everyday health care, your retirement. If you want to provide for your family and be able to live a comfortable life and enjoy it after your working years are over, this is the best option.
Now, corporations for a long time have been trying to malign unions. They are evil, they are corrupt, they take away X amount of your money every month. Tell the union tell the average American worker why that is nothing but crap.
Well, what they fail to tell you is the VPs and the CEOs, they all have contracts. So just like they have a contract that protects their benefits, a contract that protects them if they are terminated, they have, you know, something to fall back on because they'll get money after they're terminated or they'll get the health care. But you, on the other hand, without a contract, you get none of those things. But yet and still you're helping make the money to pay those people and to have their contracts in place. So you deserve to have the same protections.
I mean that goes without saying. Now you mentioned something that I live by. You just said there you are the one doing the work to make
Yeah.
them money. Folks, listen to what Yvette just said because a lot of people don't really see that. They see the CEO coming down and they give the CEO reverence.
Hmm.
The truth of the matter is the CEO should be coming down to the ramp workers, coming down to the flight attendants, coming down to the pilots and giving them reference. Because
Correct.
absent them, there is no company. Absent them, the planes don't fly. Some people want to say from the lowest worker down, putting some gas into the plane or whatever. The truth of the matter is you couldn't do it without them all.
Exactly.
You couldn't
Exactly.
do it without them all. So they should be giving you guys reference, which is something that I preach all of the times. We are distorted in this country where we don't respect teachers, the ones that are doing the jobs. We don't respect the workers. I have this phrase that I use Yvette, where I says, I respect the garbage man more than I respect the stockbroker. One guy moves paper, the other one make things happen.
Okay. That's very true.
That
Very
I
true.
mean make things happen. So you're suing these guys. You're going to do that now. How is the activism now as far as unionizing in your areas working at? Because when I got onto the radio with you earlier today, when we're prepping, it was like, oh God, I'm so tired because you've been doing a whole lot. Tell us a little bit about what you've been doing.
Yeah, we actually had a very long day yesterday, but it turned out very well. So here in Atlanta, we had a big rally at the airport as well as a evening event that turned out really great. But here we have the biggest card count that we've ever had in Atlanta. So this
Tell them what
drive
that is. Tell us what that is. A lot of people don't know what that is. Card.
card count where we
Yeah.
had the employees sign the card saying that they want a union, they want some representation. So the highest that we've ever had here is now where we stand. So we're close to heading for that vote. So it's on the way, and the people are ready. I mean, they really are ready because they see what they could have, because we have, like I say, the pilots are unionized. Our Canadian fellow co-workers are unionized, and they have a contract and a pension right above us. But we should have the same, because we're all working for the same company and getting the same profits.
Now, I saw on your Facebook page, what's the name of the guy that used to be Clinton's labor secretary? I
Uh,
know
Robert, yeah, Robert
Robert
Wright.
Robert Wright. I saw that you had his video. He actually called you guys out, the United Workers. I mean, the United Workers. I think that was great that he called you out. What you need to do is bring him into town with you guys on the picket line.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, actually, I think he would do it. I think he
Oh
would
yeah,
do
he
it.
probably would. I don't think
I
he would have it.
interviewed him a couple of times, and he's the kind of guy that would actually go out there and do that kind of a thing. But so Yvette, before we go, I'd like you to tell me. I'd like you to tell our audience. I would like you not only tell our audience. I would like you to inspire our audience to get all American workers to not consider but to unionize, because my thing is that every single worker should be in some union.
And that's my feelings as well. Because what they fail to realize, when you unionize, you're helping all other workers. So the more contracts we have out here, the better the wages will go up here, the better healthcare you'll be offered, because they all know that they would have to follow that standard. So we shouldn't fight the unions. We should be working along with the unions in order to prove worker rights all over, because we deserve it, because people fought before us to have those rights. They fought and died. And just like MLK, Martin Luther King, he fought and died, standing with the workers in Memphis. So once, that's something that we definitely should recognize. We wouldn't have things like the 40-hour work week, overtime pay. People fail to realize vacation pay. Companies were not just handing that out. That's because of labor and all the work that was put in. And we have truly forgotten, you know, how much work went into it. We think it's just something we have, that's the gravy, but it was hard fought for, and we need to continue to fight.
I don't know if Delta understood what they did by letting you go, because what they did is they really made your profile go up, and people, so I mean, they made a mistake. And did they know what? Tell what you're on the screen here. We have Evette or Avery, MAFM. What does the MAFM stand for again?
A Masters of Accounting and Financial Management.
You see, folks, you have to be careful who you mess with. You hear me, Delta? You hear me, all these other companies? Because here's the deal. Here's the deal. Americans are waking up. And when you have good leaders leading, only good things happen. Evette Avery, thank you so kindly for being a part of Politics Done Right. Thank you for that little PSA that I'm going to cut out of there and put it all over the place, because you know what? We need to make sure that Americans understand that the only way we are going to really take over, the only way we are going to blow this corporatocracy apart, meaning that we get our own share, is for people doing what you're doing. You're a hell of an activist. Thank you very much for what you're doing. Thank you for appearing on Politics Done Right.
Thank you so much for the platform.
You have a wonderful day now, okay?
You do the same. Thanks.
Bye-bye. Folks,
Bye-bye.
that was Evette Avery, political activist. She won't probably call herself political activist, but she is a political activist, and she's making a difference. And that's what we've asked all people to do. Make a difference. Get out there. You notice there's something that she said, right? She said, she have to kind of educate folks as to why it is unions are important. We've always said every single American worker should be in a union. Corporations like to stop unions. Corporations like to stop these things, but they never tell you that the Chamber of Commerce is a union, right? They pay dues, and that chamber stands up for what? That chamber stands up for doing what's right for these corporations. Do you have all these different professional manufacturers groups? You have the ASME, you have all these other, well, ASME is what I used to be in, but I mean, you have all these groups that are there for uniting because collectively you're more powerful than individuals. But the corporation wants the worker by themselves. In other words, without protection. The corporation is in charge. You are but a slave. You know, some people get mad at me when I say that, well, you know, that you're nothing but a slave to the corporation, right? Well, you're a slave to the corporation if and only if you consider all that they're doing correct. Now, if you're working for the corporation, but at the same time you're enhancing the worker, at the same time you're making things better in society, oh, you are not a slave to the corporation. You are using the corporation for better good. I can deal with that. I can deal with that. We have a lot of folks doing that. I can deal with that. What I cannot deal with is the stooges of the corporation. The people who just think the corporation is the entity. Whenever I hear somebody say, leave it to the private sector, I go berserk. Whenever I hear somebody say, oh, the private sector will take care of it, I go berserk. And why do I go berserk? Because no, there ain't no private sector taking care of the average American citizen. You have to work towards taking care of the American citizen. You have to work towards demanding what is yours. Because you know what? What is it for those folks? Maximizing the profits for a few. Maximization of the profits for a few. That is what it's all about. When we have the Evette Averys out there, that is what we need. We need thousands of Evette Averys out there for every single company out there. So you listen to her. You listen to what she had to say, and you become her. No fear. She lost her job. She lost her job because she was trying to organize people. I have no higher respect for anybody than those who put their necks on the line for people, for the American worker. And that's what she did. So folks, if you're out there listening, or folks that are out there listening, remember, Evette Avery, what she's doing with unions and others, that is what we need. Unions are the way to go. And now the corporatocracy has a whole lot of people thinking, oh, unions are no good. They're corrupt. They're this, they're... Oh, so the corporations are not corrupt. The ones that are dropping mercury are not corrupt, right? The ones that are stealing your overtime's not corrupt, right? The ones that are not paying you as they make more money, they're not paying you more. You're making more for them, but they're still keeping you underpaid. It's not enough, right? Let me tell you something. The Powell Manifesto, for decades now, has been attempting to dumb you down. And they didn't say, oh, we are going to, this didn't happen by accident. Please go to my website, egbertowillies.com, and search for the Powell Memo or Powell Manifesto. You'll see that these institutions, the Cato Institute, the Heritage Foundation, and all these other institutions were created for one reason only: to lie to you with information that gives you the semblance of being true, with the semblance of being accurate, for one purpose only: so that you would be dummified into believing that the corporate state was best for you. No control. You let the master control. And then you get the Evette Averys of the world that come in and tell you, hey, that's not the way things work. That is not the way things work. You got to come together. You got to unionize. You have to work together to attain something. I love the way she says that, okay? So folks, remember, before we go to the next subject, unions are a passion of mine as well. I don't know all the laws of unions. That's why I had to ask her a whole lot of questions as far as right to work state. And I learned something. We should be, look, Texas is a right to work state as well. Texans, if you're out there working for any major corporation, unionize. Listen to what Evette Avery said. You are more powerful with a union even in a right to work state. In fact, what she states is that in a right to work state, a union is probably more important because you have a contract that they have to abide by, that otherwise, in a right to work state, they can fire at will. Please, right to work doesn't mean right to work. It means right to fire. Right to be enslaved. That's what it means. So folks, please listen dearly. Unionize. Do not believe the lies you hear about unions. Every institution has corruption. You go ahead. If you think your union is corrupt, or if you think a union is corrupt, you run for the board and you uncorrupt it. But don't allow them to tell you unions are no good and the unions take your money. You know what? They're taking your money. Your corporation is. Let me give you some numbers, right? If you take a look at the charts as far as productivity in this country, productivity has been going through the roof, right? And the average American salary has been flatlined. Yes, every now and then you have somebody that's doing well, and there are some people that are doing well, etc., etc., etc. But listen to me, my dear friends. Most people are not. 80% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Why? Because they're not unionized. 80% of Americans. As Bezos is worth $160 billion, his workers, many of them, are getting food stamps. Unions. Again, unions. Remember that. Unionize. So anybody, whatever state you are in, right to work state or otherwise, unions is the word. Unions. You see, I learned, I wanted, when she was talking about carding, I asked her that question so that she would go ahead and explain. If people are asking you to sign that union card, sign it. Sign it. Don't be concerned about losing a job. And folks, let me tell you something. We are going to have to start coming together better. In other words, we're going to have to start be there prepared for that person who loses their job for doing the right thing and be there to support them. But we can't keep like this. We got to, everybody, you got to unionize. You got to unionize wherever you are, whatever job you are at. But, we have another subject that we need to cover today. Guess what? Here it is. Look at that chart and look at the end of that chart. What's going on with the healthcare stocks on the top right of the picture that I have there. By the way, that woman to my, I guess it would be on my right shoulder. That's my right. No, my left. That's my left shoulder. Miss, what's her name? Miss Jayapal. Okay, I love her. At first, I was concerned the way she was writing the bill. But after reading the reviews of the bill, the Medicare for All bill, it looks like it's going to be the right bill. It looks like we have the right bill, folks. And what is happening in return is the stocks of the healthcare companies are starting to tumble. To which I say, hooray, yay, because the prices of those stocks the high price of those stocks are based on all the monies, all your wealth that was ripped off from you. Don't feel sorry for the people who own the stocks. Don't feel sorry for the companies that we hope will no longer exist in selling us. I mean, they can exist in whatever other form they want, but we sure as hell don't want them selling us that useless product that they sell us. We don't want the useless product that they sell us, because what they are nothing more than skimmers, right? We don't have much respect for skimmers. We don't have respect for skimmers because they produce absolutely nothing. I challenge anybody to call me up. I challenge anybody to call, and there's a number on the screen, 646-716-5812. 646-716-5812. I will make a categorical statement. Health insurance companies are thieves. And I say that with no hesitation whatsoever. Health insurance companies are nothing more than thugs. And by the way, I hold the same. I am so much endeared to the drug companies as well, the pharmaceuticals, because they themselves are thugs. You remember what I did in the show yesterday when it came to the insulin? The insulin hasn't changed in decades. No, price increases in the raw materials, and somehow they've increased the price 1,700%. I mean, it would be nice if we could charge them with murder for the amount of people that died because they could not afford the insulin. We should find a way to charge them with voluntary manslaughter. What involuntary? They are thugs, they are criminals, they are murderers. They are thuggish, criminal murderers. As my good friend Kip Hedges says, skimmer equal parasite equal health insurance company. Man, you are so right, sir. You are so right for saying that. Let me go ahead and refresh this page. See, hi, Sally Salas. ¿Cómo estás? Let's see what. I'm refreshing, so I'm a little bit behind. That's okay. I'm coming back. Healthcare should not be a commodity. You're absolutely right. Now, Daniel Ledo, why would I not expect this from him? Healthcare as a right would be the only right that can only be secured with the labor of others. You can put that in whatever immoral form you want to put it, but most Americans believe in the morality of taking care of the commons. But if you want to do that, please feel free. Feel free to promote the immorality, the insensitivity. Feel free to do that, my brother, Senor Ledo. But let me go ahead and I always forget that I have to ask folks to be a part of Politics Done Right. Folks, please go ahead and visit patreon.com/Politics Done Right and become a subscriber of Politics Done Right. The only way we are going to continue to do the things that we're doing is to have thousands of very low-priced memberships. Subscriptions. So please go to patreon.com/Politics Done Right. patreon.com/Politics Done Right. If you're listening on the radio, if you're listening to a podcast, it is patreon.com/Politics Done Right. Remember, if you join right now, you can go ahead and you'll have full access to How to Make America Utopia. As I write a chapter, I put the chapters online as I go, and when the book is done, it's all yours as well. How to Make America Utopia. You can start reading it online right now. We have chapter 1 and chapter 2 complete, but I ask you to please go become a subscriber to Politics Done Right at patreon.com/Politics Done Right. Guess what else, though? You get to read online as well of my last book, As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. If you really want to learn about the economy, if you really want to learn about how things really work in a way that's easy to understand, entertaining, and that's going to, it's not difficult to understand at all, go ahead and sign up. Patreon.com/Politics Done Right. Patreon.com/Politics Done Right. Of course, if you just want to give a contribution and you don't want to be a subscriber, you can always go to politicsdoneright.com and click on PayPal and support it. But let me tell you, one of the problems we have, the right wing supports all its people. It supports all the people pushing that bad information. It supports the people that had pretty much confused my good friends like Daniel Ledo, etc., who have them believe in the fallacies that were put out there by the Powell Manifesto. Welcome aboard, Manuel Herrera. There are a lot of institutions out there lying to people. We are the only backstop because the mainstream media, ABC, CBS, NBC, and all these other folks, they can't do much, right? They can't come out and say, oh, the drug companies are killing you. Look at what they're doing with insulin. You know why they can't do that? Because Merck and all these guys advertise it on CNBC, MSNBC, and all these other guys. They advertise with these guys. So you can't really expect them to complain the way they should. Hello, Lee Grant. Welcome aboard. Manuel Herrera, welcome aboard. Daniel Ledo. Let's see who else. Kip Hedges. Sally Salas. Look, you can't expect them. You cannot expect them to really protect the hands that's feeding them, right? So I understand it. I'm not mad at ABC. I'm not mad at MSNBC and all these guys. I'm not. We all have our lanes. My lane, the lane of the progressive podcast, to the lane of the progressive broadcast, to the lane of the progressive folks that are doing what we're doing, is only funded directly by you, which means we only owe our loyalty to you. Only to you. So if you want factual information, if you want to give people access who normally don't have access, today we had Evette Avery on, a union activist that was fired for being a union activist, that got to come on air and tell folks exactly how things work, why every American should be unionized. Those are the things that we have to do. It seems like we have a caller. So caller, come on in. You're on, my friend.
Hello, Egberto. This is Sally.
Sally, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm hanging in there.
Good.
I'm calling today for a little advice on how to educate people about the difference between communism and socialism, and especially democratic socialism.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go on.
I am so happy you asked that. You see, because first of all, let me tell you, I'm going to kind of go around a circle to tell you the story because I want to lay the foundation first for the people that are listening. The Powell Manifesto, I bet, and I don't know this for a fact, but I bet if you look in the dictionary before the 40s, right, and you checked out and you asked somebody what is socialism and what is communism, I bet the definitions would have been different in the dictionaries then. But then as the Red Scare came and as the plutocracy, as capitalism started to worry about people starting to want...
The McCarthy era.
Exactly. You started to see different definitions of things, right? So I remember I hadn't looked it up, right? But I started to, when I started supporting these types of democratic socialist policies, I said, let me look up how these guys are defining socialism. Because you have to remember, I'm from Panama, Central America, right? So, these things don't really bother us. But I kind of started to do the research and realize, hey, if you open Webster and you look at communism and you look at socialism, you see just about the same definition where it says that the government controls all means of production. That's how they define socialism. That's how they define communism. That is false. Do not let anybody convince you to and say, oh, look at what the dictionary says. You tell them what your definition is. You said socialism mean the person's people first. That's what it means. Socialism means social, people first. That's all it means. It doesn't mean no corporations. It doesn't mean no of these other things. What it means is people first. So exactly what do I mean? I mean this.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's all it means. People first. People first.
Democratic socialism means that we all want everything for everybody.
Exactly. And not only that, that we have the vote. We have the vote to determine what we are going to put in the commons and what we're going to allow the corporate state to do. In other words, what I mean by that is this. This is my perfect, and when I'm writing this in How to Make America Utopia, and I haven't gotten to that chapter yet, but this is what's going to be in that chapter, right? We have to put the delineation between what is going to be social in the social state and what is going to be in the corporate state. And it's a bifurcated state. In other words, there's no best thing. What you have is you take the best of every system and you put it together. Things like healthcare. There's absolutely no reason to be making a profit on people getting sick. And why is that? You make profits for one reason, to create innovation, right? So an insurance company does not need to make a profit. Therefore, it does not belong in the private sector. Okay? Now, when it comes to drugs, that's an iffy situation, right? You know that profits create innovations. That is very true. If somebody know that they can make $1 on it, they can create innovation. But guess what is also true, Sally? It is also true that if you have an employee that's a scientist and you fund him, he's going to do all kinds of things to create things, right? So in reality, that's what happens in our in our system. We give universities grants, and these professors and doctors or whatever create drugs. And when it is time to get that drug out there into the marketing phase, we pass it along to the private sector. Why? Because, they know how to bottle things and they know how to do all these things after the research has been done. And so we put it to them to kind of make it better. and not make, to bed test it out, that kind of stuff, because the researchers are back doing some other research. But what we've had now is we've had us funding all these drugs, somebody taking up these drugs and making a killing. So we are paying on both ends. Makes no sense.
Can I interrupt for a
Absolutely,
second, though?
absolutely.
Because in my opinion, what the pharmaceutical companies have been doing is blatant patent abuse.
Oh, you're right.
That they file these patents to keep their foot in the door of this drug, so no one else can have access to manufacturing it.
Sally, you are so insightful. There is a chapter in my book, As I See It, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom. And let me tell you what I tell you in that book. In that book, I give the example of Claritin and Clarinex. You know what those are? Claritin was the drug that was going to get out of patent. And what the drug company did is then they create another drug called Clarinex, which was nothing but Claritin with some other non-important ingredient, so that they could have a patent again.
Yeah.
Now, if you notice, you can buy Loratadine at the store for cheap, which is old Claritin, and you can have your doctor start to prescribe Clarinex. So it's a racket. And that occurs with a whole lot of drugs.
Exactly, it's a racket. And once Americans realize that we're being gouged for drug prices compared to the rest of the world, you would think that we would already be up in arms against Big Pharma.
We are, but here's the thing. Big Pharma is smart. And not only Big Pharma, but insurance companies. Here's what... Today, I was going to read, my blog of the week was not going to be written by me. It was going to be one at Common Dreams, but I don't have to anymore because you came on and you put a whole lot of that out already. So let me tell you something that is interesting, right? If you take a look at Americans right now, Americans love Medicare for All, what they're seeing so far. I mean, they're loving it, all right? But there is an institution out there.
Yeah, because most Americans don't have good health care.
Exactly.
That's why.
Exactly. But there is an institution that was created by the drug companies, the healthcare companies right now, that they're going to work on two ways to hit Medicare for All. And they've already had it planned out. It's been reported at Vox. It's now reported at Common Dreams. I reported it at egbertowillies.com. And here's what they want to do. They're going to tell Americans that, and I find it ironic, right? Because the excuses that they're going to use now should make a lot of Americans say, oh, wait, hell no. Here's what they say. They're going to say, oh, your taxes are going to increase for Medicare for All, which is true. But instead of progressives running away from that, they have to run into that. Yes, our taxes are going to increase, but we won't have any premiums to pay. And for those who don't, and it's going to be based on your income. So you'll never pay more than 7% of your income in healthcare costs. So most people's healthcare costs is going to fall. And guess what they don't tell you? You won't have any co-pays. You won't have any deductibles. You get sick, you have your card, you go get healthcare. Who pays? Well, you know who pays? The people that have been ripping us off for all these years. The people who have been accumulating capital out of stealing us blind. That is who pays. And of course, we will all get our taxes increased, but we won't have premiums. So our total take-home pay, the amount of money in our pockets are going to be more. And what we as progressives have to do, Sally, and that's what I'm doing on this show, and that's what I'm doing everywhere, is we have to go out there and inform people on exactly what is happening. We cannot allow these charlatans to go out there and lie to them and have them continue to vote against their own interest.
Well, what we really have to do is to get the high-income earners, the ones that aren't paying any taxes. We need to finally buckle down and get them to pay their fair share.
You're absolutely right. That's why I am in support of taxing wealth. In other words, if you own a home right now, anybody who owns a house, anybody who rents, they are paying a wealth tax. How are they doing that? Well, I have a house. I own my house. Well, I can tell somebody that I own my house, right? But the truth of the matter is, every year, guess who comes to me? The taxmen come and say, hey, there's a property tax on your home. Okay, so I am paying a wealth tax.
Well, the thing is that most people don't own their property. their banks do. Whoever holds their mortgage owns their property.
And so
they're just paying on it.
And you know what is so funny? You just brought up another issue that somebody mentioned. I don't remember who it is. You are paying property taxes for the bank. Here's the funny thing. If you own a mortgage.
Exactly.
If you own a mortgage and you are getting the property taxes for what the house is worth, right? You are paying the mortgage for the person who owns the asset. Think about that. It's so it is they get away with everything. And the problem is Sally, is that most Americans don't sit down and think this stuff through because they don't want us to. Americans are working so hard. And after they're working so hard, they come home. They don't want to have too much deep thinking. That is why reality TV is so powerful right now. There's a group in Arizona, in Utah, was a part of Move to Amend. I love that woman, Ashley. Ashley did a video called Bread and Circus. In the old days, what the king used to do, the king has ultimate power. But how do you keep people satisfied and not wanting what you have? Because when the people saw that the king has all of this, he doesn't work for it or anything, they start to get worried they could easily overthrow the king. But the king realized one thing: I can keep power by just doing one thing, or doing two things: feeding these people cheap food and keeping them entertained. And that is what we're doing right now. We're giving folks a whole lot of crap on TV, and at the same time, we're giving them cheap food. That's why you can go and get $1 special here and $1 special there. That's what we do. We have to stop that. Sally, anything else you have to add before I close down this show?
Well, I just wanted to touch on how labor unions are practically non-existent in our country now, and that's the corporate takeover. Right.
We need a labor renaissance, and you know what? That starts with Evette Avery and many others like Evette Avery who are working their butts off and some of them losing their jobs. These are my heroes.
Yeah.
These are my heroes. That woman that was just on the segment before, my hero. And why? She lost her job. She lost her job for America. So look, I close this baby down. I gotta do one more pitch to ask folks to become members of Politics Done Right. Sally Salas, thank you so kindly for calling in, folks. Be like Sally, call in. I mean, most people just like to listen, and I can talk and talk and talk. But man, I want to hear your opinion, just like I want to hear what Sally has to say. I want to hear a lot of you write it down on down here. But I would also like for you to call in and hear your voices. Thank you so kindly for calling in, Sally. Now, folks, let me tell you, please go ahead and go to patreon.com, patreon.com/politics done right.
Kindly for calling.
Now become a member of Politics Done Right. It's very inexpensive. Start at $1.99. I know you guys would buy me a cup of coffee. I know you don't mind doing that because you say, hey, you know how hard we work. By the way, I'm going to be in Austin on Monday. We are going to challenge the Texas legislature to adopt the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act. I am going to try to still bring you a show, maybe from the bus, with a phone, still transmitting over Facebook Live. I'm going to see if we can hook it into YouTube Live and the other channels that we're going through as well. We have a lot to do, folks. But anyhow, please go ahead and subscribe to Politics Done Right. patreon.com/Politics Done Right. Remember, I'm writing the book, How to Make America a Utopia. And by the way, as I put the chapters online, you get to see it before the entire book is out. I have chapter 1 and chapter 2 out there. I'm right in chapter 3 right now. Please go ahead and sign up at patreon.com, patreon.com/Politics Done Right. Become a member. Also, you get full access to As I See It, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom. If you want to learn about the economy, you want to understand a whole lot of what we talk about here, in more detail but easy to understand, go ahead and sign up at patreon.com/Politics Done Right. If you just want to say, I want to make sure that Egberto stays on air and continue to do what he's doing, you can also go to politicsdoneright.com and just click on the Patreon or the PayPal button and contribute to keep us alive. Thank you so kindly for listening to the show, for watching the show. Those of you that are listening on podcast, consider keeping this thing going. Love you guys. Love what you bring. Remember, we have to work together to get it done. disregard the right. Disregard all those forces coming from the right trying to tell you it's not going to happen. Disregard those people who are trying to drop your spirits. Disregard that. As long as you're moving forward, as long as you're doing something, man, as long as you're doing something, you're alive and you're making things happen. Let's do it. Let's not allow them to make us fall into that realm of, oh, we are lost. We can't do it. We can do it. Do not allow them to take that away from us. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this baby. I am out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.